It's a much bigger reason than anybody out there knows why he's still here. But he's still here. Supposedly he was, I think about a little over a month premature. He was 6 pounds 9 ounces, and he was pretty red and little frog legs, and he had rashes. He was allergic to milk, and he was kind of high maintenance. But he was so beautiful. Just had my baby. That was my dream. That was my dream. There he was. We just picked out a million names, and that was the coolest one we could think of. We just thought Jason Eli Becker. Eli was for Eli Wallach, who played in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We thought Jason Eli Becker sounded like a great person. what, didn't really seem to come wanting to be a baby or a kid. He wanted everything to be perfect already. It was really, really frustrating for him not to be able to talk, not to be able to walk, not to be able to take pictures like his Uncle Ron did, not to be able to play the guitar like his dad did. So when he was 5 and had to start kindergarten, he thought that everybody was going to be as talented and know as much as Gary and Ron, and he was going to be the dullard. So he didn't want to go to school. And since he didn't want to go to school, he wouldn't talk to the teachers. And they said, well, if he's not going to talk, he can't come to school. So we actually had to take him to counseling. And for the first few visits, the counselor had to come out and take him by the ankles and drag him in. 5 or 6 weeks later, he finally talked, and everything was fine.
We grew up in a great environment. My parents always remembered what it was that was fun about being a child. It was fantastic. It's so funny to try to think of detail about that time because it is so long ago and a different world. My first memory of my life was Jason getting a guitar for Christmas. All I remember is a big triangular box under the tree. It was the biggest one by far, and of course that's the one we wanted. But it was for him, and I remember him looking at it going, I think they got me a guitar. And my thought at that point was, a guitar? Why would they get you a guitar? He was excited. He was 5 years old. Ooh, I'm gonna get a guitar. I think that's what it is. Our dad taught him how to write music. This is what you do. You learn this and then we'll move on. And at 5 years old, he was bored.
He just didn't come back. He was just bored, and he never came back for lesson number 2.
And one day I had a silly toy plastic xylophone. My dad started playing a little Bob Dylan song on it.
Why don't you play that? So we play it on the xylophone, and Jason's watching this.
Why does he get to play Bob Dylan songs? I got to learn how to play a major scale. And he said, that's right. Here's 3 chords. Now you know a whole lot of Bob Dylan songs.
He was interested in the guitar, and of course, like any kid, he wants to hold the pick and pluck the strings. First I was doing, he said, no, I do it. So he grabs the pick, and he starts playing. It didn't sound right, so he said, you do it.
You do it.
So I just showed him a simple bass line, just 4 notes, and after a couple of minutes, he got that, and then for 15 minutes, Gary was doing some poetry and stuff, and we were playing guitar to it, and Jason just studying that bass line for the whole 15 minutes without losing it at all.
It's in the darkest hour. It's right before the dawn.
He was in 6th grade, playing guitar, playing harmonica, and singing Bob Dylan songs for the talent show.
And he had some showmanship, and he would hold his guitar up to the side and just do all kinds of fancy stuff.
Oh, you know what I mean. Every day it's time I see she be gone.
Going from Bob Dylan, from chords, playing and singing, to this is a guitar player, started with going out to the movies in Berkeley to see The Last Waltz.
He put on an Eric Clapton album, and he played note for note an Eric Clapton solo. My mind was blown. I said, man, I didn't know you could do that. He would work on what I taught him, and then he'd go work on his own stuff. And so when he played the Eric Clapton thing, I said, that's it. Could you show me how to do that? You're the teacher now.
Someone's gonna hurt you like you hurt me. Further on up the road.
And from there it was every Eric Clapton album. Gotta know every note of every one of them. Can I do it? Can I play it? Yes. Eddie Van Halen, can I play it all? Yes. And it just moves from there.
Well, thank you. Pleasant sound. going to start out with a composition of mine called Electric Dreams.
I met Gary Becker, Jason's dad, when I was a herb tea distributor. And I was also running concerts on the side. And he said, my son Jason, he's 13 years old, and he's quite a great guitar player. I want you to come over and watch him play sometime. Maybe he could play one of your open mics or one of your shows. So a year later, when he was a whopping 14 years old, I went over to the Becker house and I sat on the couch, and in comes Jason with his long metal hair, and he had dog collars on his wrist, and I just thought, oh my God, what did I get myself into here? And he brought in his amp, and it was about 3 feet from my face, and I'm thinking, can I put my fingers in my ears? Would that be rude? And I sat back getting ready to get blasted by the sound, but instead, no, he launches into a Bach fugue with the volume knobs going ooh, 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 and all like that, and it morphed into this speed metal thing. Well, I just realized I was in a room with a genius, with a virtuoso at age 14. Initially, he would just go and play the things that he knew when he was 13 and 14 years old. But as he got more comfortable with playing in front of people, he started incorporating some theatrical bits into his show.
He wasn't the kind of kid that had a practice routine. It was just always there, and it was always on him. He'd come to dinner with a guitar on him and play during bites. He bought a little guitar for the car so that when he stopped at red lights, he could practice. He'd fall asleep with the guitar on top of him and wake up playing.
I used to always want to jam with like Gary, but Gary was had an art career, so that was his priority, I think. And when Jason started getting into the guitar, I'd say, well, Jason, you want to go over and play some guitar? Every time, yep. So that turned into 3 or 4 times a week. He'd come over and play. He could go all night.
Peculiar cat, you know. Meeting Jason was a trip because we were in a predominantly black neighborhood. And to see Jason was like, wait a minute. We were all in the Prince days with the whole pencil neck ties and the pimpy-doo hairdos, roboting and stuff like that. Jason wasn't into that. He was his own guy, and he was into his own music. Deep. The talent show was a trip. What I remember most about that day was the guy was telling him, turn the music down. Jason goes and turns it back up. And, you know, he just didn't give a fuck. everybody's mouth just drops. It was total silence in the audience. Everywhere you look, it was like, who is this guy playing like this? Something I can't really put in words how he affected, a single person affected the whole school like that. It was amazing.
He was making serious decisions and serious sacrifices about his life. He cut his social life, short, very young, so that he could keep practicing. And he loved to practice. It didn't seem like it was practice to him. It was just, he just played. He expressed an interest in learning music theory more. And I saw this little ad, little wrinkled old classified ads from a flea market newspaper, and a little tiny thing said, guitar lessons, Dave Creamer, formerly with Miles Davis. Took Jason down there, and I sat in on the lessons. This time, Jason was a virtuoso, but his first lessons, we'll play these chords. Jason couldn't do it. He was really slow, and it was like a different language. But a few lessons later, I sat in him. He just got better and better, and that was it.
Fuck it, man. Too hard. Don't even try to play it.
I'd walk in his bedroom and I'd see him play his guitar, one hand, the neck, and the other hand with a yo-yo, and he's fucking pissed about his yo-yo, fucking up the yo-yo than the guitar. He's like, fuck, that yo-yo. And it's like, man, if I could only do what you do with one hand, and so you just seeing those kind of how easy it was for him to play and how he was always pushing it. He was the guy that was blaring Mozart and Bach on the radio. Like I was listening to Slayer, and I was rocking Slayer. He was listening to Bach. And I'm like, this guy's a weirdo, right? Because he was funny and he was joking around, but he was really into that shit, He was really into that music. And you hear the way he plays, and he understood it. He was on another level.
Punk rock sort of was getting watered down into new wave music, and where disco was still hanging on. And as a young record collector interested in heavy metal and aggressive music and great guitar playing, I found there to be a lack of that kind of music. I started Shrapnel Records in an effort to find undiscovered heavy metal talent and also to find the next greatest guitar players of the era. And there was a article going around that was reprinted in various publications around the country, basically stating my mission that I was looking for the 10 of the best unknown guitar players in the United States.
And Jason read that every month, and he told me, this was in high school, he wanted to send him a demo. He recorded it himself, did a little artwork, wrapped it up, got the address, and he was going to send it off. And I said, yeah, he gets thousands and thousands of tapes, I'm sure, so, don't be too disappointed, if you don't hear from him or anything.
So as the tapes rolled in, the stakes got higher, the playing demands on the artist grew greater. I had a greater talent pool to choose from. So therefore, I was a lot more selective. So around 1986, 1987, Marty Friedman decides to move out to San Francisco. And Marty's working on a new solo record for Shrapnel Records and giving me demo tapes, and we're going over material.
It was going to be the most intense album of guitar music that I'd ever done, and I was just really pumped. And I worked on it for such a long time, and I was going to do it, and I had written everything myself.
Around that same time, I got a tape from Richmond, California, from Jason Becker. On these recordings, you could hear that Jason had a deep understanding of harmony and counterpoint and classical theory. Yet, where did he get it? He didn't go to a conservatory. He didn't study for, 15 years. He didn't go to Berklee School of Music. He wasn't even out of high school. And his understanding and depth of music really impressed me. I knew it would impress Marty. So I said to Marty,
You got to listen to this kid, Jason Becker.
Why not do a duo? Two guys doing crazy stuff.
And I'm like, I couldn't care less.
But he's got something that you don't have, and you have something he doesn't have, and if you put it together, it could be something really special.
So what am I going to do with this kid, you know what I mean? The stuff I was working on for my record, I'd say, this is going to be one of my new songs. Can you play this? He's like, oh, yeah. And then he just play it. I'm like, wow. He just melted me. When he came into my house, I just melted.
Marty was older than Jason, but they looked like a couple of kids to me, and Marty started coming over, and they'd be out in the backyard right out there. Two little kids playing. They'd set the metronome, tick, 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 and I'm just, man, unbelievable.
That was the beginning of Shrapnel Records and the beginning of shred guitar as we know it today.
That was like a good pose. Now, try,
Why is your mouth open?
Looks fine to me,
No pouting.
Try a couple different things.
No.
Well, are you holding the guitar up straight?
Am I?
Yeah.
Am I?
No.
Well, fix mine.
So paranoid about me.
Do I have?
Yes, please do.
Marty taught him a lot. Marty was great. He was funny, and they had a great time. They were great friends, and those were good times with Marty.
Okay, right there. The more I played with him, the more he started playing my stuff, and he played it so well, and often nicer than the way I played it. He would play it nicer and smoother and better. And I'm like, this kid is only going up.
I was afraid he'd drop out of high school. So I called the principal up. I took him down, and we met with the principal, and I said, Jason's got a recording contract. He's really spending a lot of time. He's going to cut a record. I want him to finish high school. Can he get out early, and what does he need? He got straight A's on those classes, graduated 6 months early, and, hit the road.
Cacophony の皆さんです。ハロー。
down the Prairie Sun where they were finishing up the record. I walked in and I heard Sword of the Warrior, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to be able to play this stuff, because, you know, it's what I call musical gymnastics. Yeah, those are the best times of my life. He always had fun on stage.
Yeah, you're right. It was really about playing and joking around. He didn't get into really anything extra on the road, really, while everyone else is getting into all the crazy trouble that you get into on the road.
Yes.
Good, clean fun, man.
Sure.
I mean, you know, he would call home, and I know he was reporting home.
There was one time we were in Jackson, Mississippi.
That has to be the edited version.
Well, it is, yeah. We were in Jackson, Mississippi. And,
I'm just going to go along with, I remember being in Jackson.
And there were some girls, you know, who wanted to hang out. And Jason just had his guitar, and he was playing faster than I've ever heard him play. There was some stuff going on, a little bit of nudity, and his riffs got faster and faster. And at some point, we're like, put down your guitar. But, you know, it was no group sex or nothing, just, you know, some good old clean fun. I think we got kicked out of Jackson, Mississippi.
Actually, we were asked to leave.
By the mayor or something. We were messing with his daughter.
I don't know if that, we just, I remember there was a little party in our room, and Jason got a little nervous with all the partying going on. I don't think he ever put down his guitar.
No.
For anything. Yeah, you're right. He did start playing faster and faster and faster.
When you got your music, it's just like a woman, you know what I'm saying?
I remember Jason saying, like, when he would hang out with his friends, they're always bitching about their parents and their old man, and man, I don't have anything to say. I wish you were worse.
He said, I wish I had something to bitch about.
Yeah.
Shoot. You know, I don't have character in my eyes. I'm too, you know, everything's too good for me. Something bad has to happen to me. We'd say, well, you'll get character. Bad things will happen to you, don't worry.
But I think after they did the tour, everybody was sort of ready for the next chapter in their lives musically.
He just, in person, face to face, he just said, you know, I love you, I love the band, but, you know, I want to do my own thing.
I feel really lucky and very fortunate, and I love coming to Japan, and it's so different.
When Jason came back to Japan, it was his solo thing, and he didn't come as Cacophony, but he just came by himself.
It's just great. It's a whole different experience for me, and I'm loving it, every minute of it. I'm grateful to be able to play to all these people around the world.
We set up guitar clinics, and one time we had this guitar show in Ikebukuro. And when we got there, we saw a very, very, very long line trying to get into that building. And Jason and I thought that, hey, that is somebody famous coming, you know, let's find out who that is for. So I went to one of those guys, like, hey, who is this for? And he said, oh, this is a clinic for Jason Becker. They must have 800 to 1,000 people just for the clinic. He was going, holy, this is all for me.
Jason's star was rising, and it couldn't be contained.
We had created an image for these guys as being the best. So when people are the best, you're recruited by people looking for the best.
Whitesnake was looking for a guitar player, and you know, I had a few people say, hey, what about that? What about that? What about you? Oh, Steve Vai's there. And I had a friend who said, well, yeah, but if Steve Vai's there, then who's with David Lee Roth?
If you look at Jimi Hendrix as being the greatest American, rock guitar player, perhaps, for sure of the 60s and early 70s. Eddie Van Halen would have to be the next guy. Who's going to replace Steve Vai and David Lee Roth's band? That was the big question, and everybody wanted to know, and they were getting bombed with tapes. I know I was getting people calling me up saying, hey, can you get me hooked up with that gig? I got a call from Greg Bissonette saying,
Mike, help.
I'm going to recommend the guitar player for you guys. I give you 10 guitar players, but I believe this guy is the guy.
Let me play you something over the phone. Check this out. His name is Jason. He's about 19 years old. Check it out. Now, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me get. Okay. Hold on. No, wait just a second. You got to check this guy out. And then he plays it over the phone, and I'm going, wow, Jason Becker. Where did this guy come from?
So the next day, David Lee Roth and Bob Ezrin called me.
What is he doing? How is he doing that?
So I played them the stuff over the phone, and they went out and bought a plane ticket.
So he called. I said, well, how'd it go? This is after the audition. How'd it go? What's the deal? Did you get it? He said, yeah. I said, well, tell me. He said, can't talk. David Lee Roth said, don't tell anybody, not even your folks.
We're rich.
He had got his gig in David Lee Roth before I was in Megadeth, so at first I'm like, well, I'm older than him. Shouldn't I have got a gig first? It's a natural feeling, I was about to audition for Madonna.
I think the David Lee Roth gig was the most coveted rock gig on the planet at the time, and it was an almost impossible situation to get yourself into.
Hello?
Jason.
Yeah.
Jazz Obrecht.
Hey, Jazz, how you doing?
Good, man. Is this a good time to talk?
Sure, this is okay.
Did you feel any, special pressure knowing that you were following in the footsteps of Eddie and Steve Vai?
No, not really. They don't want another Eddie or another Steve. They want me for what I do.
Filling the shoes of a prior icon can always be a challenging task.
It's like following two Hall of Fame quarterbacks on the same team, and it's just, there's no way anybody should be able to pull that off, and yet he did. Anybody would have had the right to be kind of egoed out over getting a gig like that, and it seemed like it was a very humbling thing for him, which I found incredibly refreshing.
You're treated like gods, You sell out your Madison Square Garden and, to an audience that's 80% teenage girls in their underwear.
And that was a guy I knew from down the street. And the neighborhood we're from, this isn't like a nice area to grow. Richmond is pretty ghetto. So to have someone that talented and that amazing and still have his street smarts, and still, being from here, he's not like a dork. He was like us.
When he went to his audition, we noticed that he was limping. He was always carrying really heavy bags of stuff. He promised us that he would go to Kaiser and get a checkup on, what was going on.
Dang! The greatest thing about Jason was his open-mindedness and his attitude. I remember the one word he'd say all the time was dang, if something blew him away. And he even had a pick that said dang on it. That was like his thing, like, I gotta check that out. Dang!
He practiced all the time. I'd go past his room and I'd hear him in there practicing and working on solos and writing solos and writing other guitar parts and writing different songs. He made me feel guilty because I wasn't doing any of that. I was just, hey, let's go out and have fun. Let's go to the gentlemen's clubs and let's go to the bars.
Dang! Open-minded, arms wide open. I'm going to embrace this. This doesn't scare me at all.
Here's the kind of thing Jason does. He goes to Vancouver. He's in David Lee Roth's band. And they're staying at kind of a sleazy dive. And there's a cleaning woman there who he kind of falls in love with. You know, she's sort of an elderly woman. He gets her a big bouquet of flowers. You know, how can you worry about your kid, you know, being swayed by the evils of showbiz when he's like that? You just don't.
Dang!
He walks in the door, and he's limping a little.
And he kind of grabbed a baffle, a gobo, like he was losing his balance. And I said, Jason, what's going on? He said, I think I have a pinched nerve or something in my leg.
We'd be walking along the street, and we'd be talking and yucking it up, having a great time. And suddenly I'd look over, and Jason wasn't there. And I thought, well, where's Jason? And I'd look back, and he had fallen.
Gosh, your pants are too tight. You got to get that checked out. You probably pulled a hamstring or something, and it's just been going on for a few months now, and you need to do that. And he calls us and said, well, they're going to do more tests and everything, but they think it might be some nerve thing. I don't know, whatever. And we were kind of stunned. He had one more test that he went in to do, and I think they brought in at least one or two other specialists to complete that test.
He did that and called me on the phone and told me, as if he was telling me, I've got a touch of tendinitis or something silly. He told me I've got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know that he understood what he was telling me. I mean, that just stabbed me in the heart, and I didn't say anything to him, but I said, I don't know, and then maybe I said, wow, okay. And then hung up, and man, I was just totally devastated. I just could not believe it.
When I called Gary from Glendale after Jason had left for practice that day, I told Gary, and, once again, he just broke down, and he said, he's gonna die?
ALS is a condition that is relentlessly progressive, almost always leads to death by causing degeneration of the motor nerves and the muscles. Once it starts, it relentlessly worsens until it causes paralysis, weakness of breathing, and speech muscles and swallowing. So it's a paralyzing disease.
We believe you've got Lou Gehrig's disease and you have 3 to 5 years to live. I think his answer was, am I going to be able to tour? Am I going to be able to get the album done and tour before? That was priorities at that point. My dad took off work for a while and went down to help him, and it was my mom and me alone here. And what do? You want to do something, you want to help, you want to make something better, and we're, an 8-hour drive away. And it's just so hopeless. It's so helpless.
Here's my kitchen. Come on. Vitamins. Health food cookies. The only thing bad is the chocolate chips in it. Don't cringe, Grandma. It's a good cookie. That's what Grandma's doing. She's watching me eat the cookie going, no!
For this to happen to him when he worked so hard and did everything he could do and made his dream come true, and it's going to be taken away. And he didn't believe that at the time, and we did.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Why don't you be mine? Howdy, neighbor. It's a beautiful day.
He'd go get a spinal tap and they'd drain his spinal fluid, and then he'd hobble out to practice and he would play. And another time they'd do a biopsy, they'd cut a chunk of his flesh out of his leg, and then he'd hobble off to David Lee Roth and do some more rehearsing. And I know his fear would be to not accomplish something at least first. Number one, to make the record. Number two, to make the tour. He desperately wanted to make that tour.
We were actually together at a NAMM show. It was around the time when he was finishing the record. Actually, he said, I don't know what's going on. And he said the thing that was really scary for him is that he was starting to have that sensation in his hand. Like he didn't have any real feeling there.
It was more after the album was finished that I noticed that it was getting worse. I went over to his apartment one time in Glendale. We were working out some guitar part, I think. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, I don't understand what you're saying. Here, let me just give you the guitar and you just show me what you mean. And that's when I saw how bad it affected his playing. He could barely play to me what he wanted. It was just a couple of notes.
For Shrapnel Records, he'd do everything in one take. Bam, nail it, done, next song. And it took him more than one take in Vancouver, and that didn't make him feel good.
We went to an event at David Lee Roth's big mansion in Pasadena. The event was to introduce David Lee Roth's new young gun. David Lee Roth made a toast to Jason, and everybody stood up and clapped. It was very weird. We had the diagnosis already, and nobody knew. It should have been a huge celebration, and everything that he worked for, everything he dreamed about came true right there. There we were, and he's been diagnosed with ALS. That kind of turned the dream into a nightmare.
Then it just got to where he dropped the guitar, he couldn't even hang on to it, and that's when he let Dave know that what was going on, and then they both mutually agreed that Jason couldn't do it.
Dave was really sad. The only two pictures of Jason and Dave were taken by Gary, who said, "Let me get a shot of you," as we were leaving.
Hey, tell me about why you're not touring with Dave.
Well, that's because I have this illness that, as they say, it's called ALS.
ALS? So what's Dave going to do about touring?
He's got another guy.
Then we came home and started a whole new life.
When he told me that he had to leave David Lee Roth's band, I knew it was really serious. You know, thank God he got that one record out, but I was just praying for the day he'd get on tour and just have the people go crazy over his amazing guitar playing. Of course, I was happy to be in Megadeth, but I wanted to say, look what we're doing now. We're playing Madison Square Garden. It's sold out. Dude. And of course, I still did that because I loved him and he was my family. But, you know, you really hold back sometimes. So it sucked. It sucked. But Jason never, ever made me feel like, fuck you, man, you got it, and I didn't. Never, ever. You know, he was always, man, that's great, that's great. Always encouraging, always.
I know it had to have hurt, not because Marty was successful, but because here he was, and there he could have been.
I remember playing in the UK and playing Wembley and thinking, man, don't you wish Jason could be here? And I remember a few times calling Jason and just my brother and I calling him and passing the phone back and forth. He just would say things like, dang, I bet you guys are having a blast. Dang, I wish I could be there.
I'm sure there were a lot of family dreams, not just Jason's dreams, but dreams for the whole family. And for his parents, I can imagine they're seeing their son gonna be able to do this thing, be a rock star, and it's a dream of his, and therefore a dream that they shared with him. And then it's just ripped.
I wish he could have made one tour with Roth. If he did, his fame would have been, you know, tenfold. That didn't work out.
We tried everything. We tried every alternative thing. We tried chelation, we tried acupuncture, we tried colon cleansing, we tried everything. There's no answers. There's no reason anybody can give you. There's nothing for you to take. It's all nothing.
It is a terminal diagnosis. There is no treatment available. Any other disease, there seems to be hope. You talk to any ALS patient and they'll tell you that when they go in and that fear of that diagnosis, they're hoping for brain cancer. They're hoping for, you know, Parkinson's. They're hoping for Alzheimer's or dementia. It's a really crazy situation that they're placed in.
He'd feign going dead and saying, you have to get used to seeing this. And some of them go too far, but you find that when things like this happen, your sense of humor goes dark.
And the next time I saw him, he had canes. He was walking with canes. And then the very next time I saw him, he was in a wheelchair. It was like, it seemed like just months. It just immediately took hold.
He was very angry. Sometimes he's angry at me. Maybe he wanted to knock me down, but he couldn't move. Once I bought him a laundry basket, turned it upside down so he could drive his wheelchair and crash into it. Just release those emotions.
He wanted to keep using his voice, and we really couldn't understand him very well, but he was afraid that if he stopped using his voice and tried to communicate some other way, his voice would get weak. He didn't want to get in a wheelchair. He resisted that for a long time until he just couldn't walk anymore. You could see his thumb. There'd be a twitch here, you know, and you could see it twitching. And he says, every time I get a twitch, a few days later, that feeling is gone. That muscle's gone. With not being able to drink, not being able to eat, not being able to talk, not being able to drive, not being able to move, not being able to walk, eventually, all these things took away muscle and weight. And I remember being shocked looking at his arms and legs and thinking, there's just barely any meat there, you know, it's just skeletal, and oh my God, he was just wasting away.
I first met Jason in 1992. He came to me for massage therapy sessions, and after working with him for a few months, I realized that he meant a lot more to me than just a client, and I guess he felt the same way, so that's why I'm here.
Part of me maybe did feel like somehow we were gonna beat this thing, and to fully acknowledge that that wasn't happening felt a bit like a failure.
The sadness and the darkness is there, but I don't remember a point where he hit a point where he didn't know if he would go on. It never surprised me that if there was a way to keep making music, he would.
He had music in his head. His friend Mike Beamisterfer encouraged Jason to use the technology to keep playing music, and I think that's how he kept going.
His mind frame was, well, no, I have stuff to do, so I just have to go do it. And so it was pretty easy as a close friend of his to be motivated to figure out how to make that possible.
So we created a computer program that allowed Jason to use a visor with a sensor on it that would move the cursor around the computer screen according to his head movements. And then his chin would click the mouse and enter the notes one at a time.
Turn the volume way up.
Yeah. He's got these complex melodies, so he had to slow them down in his brain, enter them in one note at a time by opening his chin, knowing how to then adjust the velocity and the phrasing of each individual note so that when you played them back at speed, he'd get the phrasing that he was originally trying to achieve on the guitar. It was a pretty amazing thing to watch. And quite frankly, I don't know how he did it.
God, he just kept working. I would do everything I could to keep him going because he still wanted to go. And it happened so young, and he just still had a life to live, and he wanted to live it.
Gary packed his studio up, kind of put it in storage, and set Jason up in his studio with his music so that he could create perspective. And while he was writing that and creating that, Gary was drawing still, but he didn't have a studio. It was kind of dedicated to Jason.
So the musical talent is still there. All the sensibility of notes, of harmony, of composition, of timing, of phrasing, it's all still inside of him, but he's been robbed of, the movement of his hands, that's the only way we play guitar.
He had to go to a big studio at a guy's place that was like, he had all the orchestral sounds, and his was the best.
He was on a hillside, so there was a set of narrow, windy stairs going down to the house from the street that Gary and I, and whoever else was available, had to carry Jason down in his wheelchair down those steps. And then in the house there were more stairs.
This guy, Denny Yeager, invented something called the synclavier. It was this giant, kind of like a mixing board full of sound. So Jason was kind of on the edge of a modern technology with that.
The studio was pretty much only available in the wee hours of the night, so we had to go there then.
And I remember Gary creating this very, regimented schedule, drawing his calendar with all of his artistic filigree. And, okay, we're going to, he had everything mapped out, and he would call me like clockwork every night at 12 to wake me up. And then my girlfriend would shove me out the door.
Jason was just a workaholic. I mean, he would stay up. I would go to sleep under the piano.
He still made music. He still made music. I mean, that's extraordinary. It's a testament to the human will and his passion for music. He just didn't give up.
Gary pounded his fist and he said, if we don't get this record done, Jason's going down And I want him to live to see the end of this record, because even at that point, I think in some way he had begun to make peace with that possibility.
It's hard to imagine, as an artist, somebody telling you this may be your last work, or this will be your last work. It's easy to see why Jason put so much effort into perspective, because that was the opus. That was the culmination of those years of study and practice and dreaming and creating and visualizing exactly the kind of record he would one day make. And to have to make that record starting at age 20 years old is a challenge.
I, Rosemary M. Corbin, Mayor of the City of Richmond, on behalf of the City Council, in recognition of Jason Becker's achievements, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, May 28, 1996, as Jason Becker Day in the City of Richmond.
He asked me to convey his thanks and read this statement from him. The place you were raised is more than just a town on a map. It's a place in your heart full of people that will never die. Music is the voice of my heart. The success I've had in music grew from the dreams that were hatched here. I love Richmond, and I thank everyone in this city who knows me or doesn't know me for all the memories and this honor. Thank you. I would like to add that Jason's album Perspective will be in the record stores this week, and he asked me to present Mayor Corbin with a copy of this.
Thank you.
Jason was having just an increasingly hard time breathing, to the point where one day it was just too scary, and he just wanted to go to the doctor and say, "What can I do?" None of us really were thinking about the possibility of life support. But we went to the doctor, Gary and Jason and I, and the doctor said, "So, Jason, do you want to live?" And Jason says, "Hell yeah." And the doctor says, "Well, I think you need a tracheostomy." The whole family was in the room with him, sitting around laughing and joking and feeling like everything was going to be okay now. And I sat down on the bed, and I noticed that he didn't react to me sitting on the bed, and I kind of poked him, and didn't react to that either, and I poked him harder, and there was no response, and I thought, this isn't sleep. This is CO2 narcosis, which is generally what gets people with ALS. It's what they usually die from.
Sweet is the dream that hovers above your sorrow. Someday is the time when all you believe in comes true. While you wait, climb the stairs of knowledge like prayers to the tower of spiritual awakening, where your heart sees the truth by the light of your kindness. You know you can never be happy while even one innocent being suffers. Step gently with each thought, for though it disappears behind you, far into the mist of time, what awaits you is that which your thoughts have created. If there is not love in your mansion, though it be filled with jewels, it is cold and empty inside. When you knock on the door of your future, it is only you that will answer. Dream well, children. Have faith in your fantasy. Today it comes true.
Well, they said he died of ALS, and I was heartbroken at the time, and You know, it really touched me because Jason really had touched me and the whole school and a lot of deep, you know, partners of mine.
It was a very cool relationship. And yeah, it was probably the best relationship I have had and may ever have.
People die from Lou Gehrig's disease, but I'm not. Yeah, but people do. Yeah, I know. I'm not. Okay, and so he hasn't yet. I mean, it happens that way for him.
Then I get this email out of the blue and says, "Hi, this is Jace. How you doing, brother?" And I'm like, "Who is this?" I thought it was somebody impersonating Jason and just proceeded to cuss him out. Like, how the fuck you just gonna act like you Jason Becker? That was my boy, you know? And he was like, "No, it's really me, man." I'm like, "For reals? For really? This is really Jason Becker?"
L-A-D, ladies, A-and-G-E, gentlemen. T-H-I, this is Jason Becker, T-H-E, the S-E-X, sexiest, M-A, man, alive. Jason communicates with basically an eye sign language that I invented for him. He was having a difficult time projecting his words, and I was having a very hard time understanding him, and I began to get worried that eventually I wouldn't be able to understand him at all, and if he was in pain or had needs, how would I deal with that? Basically, it's an eye geometry. Every letter of the alphabet has a specific angle, and it's two eye movements. First eye movement will take you to one of these squares, and the second eye movement will take you to one of the letters in the square. So how he spells words, he will say a letter, then another letter, and as soon as I think I know the word, I will say the word, and if that's it, he's moving on to the next one, so he does not have to say every letter of every word. In fact, sometimes it looks like mental telepathy, because he's just flowing along, and most of what we say are filler words anyway, and within the context of the conversation, it's E, V, E, every, W, O, word, I, is, I, S, say, is, I, am, important. Jason has no filler words. Most of my words are fillers. I'm glad we clarified that. When I finally went to the hospital to get a trach, I was lying there, extremely tired from life, and I started feeling the life leaving my body, and I heard the sound of Om. I went into a door with an eye on it, and I felt so good and relieved in that sound. I said, I don't want to go yet, and the life came back to my body. When I came out of that state, I had lost my anger and fear. It also seemed everyone else around me had more energy and love as well.
I kind of don't think that he would be still here if he was using the food that was given to him when he left the hospital. And they expected him to live on for the rest of his life, which is canned white liquid made from oil and sugar and synthetic vitamins. And that's kind of what people on tube feeding get in general, and I don't think it sustains life very well, so we got him off that as soon as we could. This is pumpkin seeds, these are flax seeds, dandelion greens, black plums, garlic extract, essential fatty acids, multivitamin, mixture. Vitamin C, good for a lot of things, good for healing. Time for lunch.
It's a concerted community effort. I mean, there's family members, extended family members, friends, and they all have committed to this care. That doesn't make it any easier. Every family is different. In some families, people just melt under the pressure. The Beckers seem to be a family that have really embraced it for 20-some-odd years. When my friend, who's a big ALS advocate who sees thousands of patients, met Jason and said, "Oh my God, your skin tone is the best I've ever seen in anybody." And the Beckers attribute that to his diet that is provided to him. And, you know, Gary Becker said to me, "We have to thank Sarana for the care that Jason's given. That's the only reason he's alive today." And Jason spelled out and joked, he said, "Oh, really? I thought it was due to your left nut."
When I was a teenager, I ate J-U-N junk food. Oh, you OD'd on McDonald's? Maybe they'll pay you to do a commercial for them. See what happens when you eat too much McDonald's? No dessert for you. I-O-N, only C-R, crave, P-E-N, penis, N-O, now.
As much as I can say, I don't know how he does it. When I'm with him, he has the love for the life. And I mean, he's an unrealistic son of a bitch, and that's how he keeps going.
Jason's totally in control. He tells us when he needs adjusting. There's a schedule for when he drinks and eats, that sort of thing. And basically, he's like the CEO of this small little business, you know, sort of whipping us all into shape in a good way.
Then L-O, low, R, lower, D, N-O, not T-H, that. Not that D? Oh. No. I couldn't quit on my music. It never even entered my mind. I just love making music, and no matter how hard it is like my drug. I remember George Carlin saying if he was paralyzed, to hook him up on a morphine drip and feed him ice cream all day. That is funny as hell, and sometimes I joke about wanting to do that, but I just couldn't do it. D, F, E. Next life, P, R, A, practice, S, O, son. Okay. So, guitar to computer, and once Jason has his notes on the computer, he has something to work with and play with, and that's like his palette, and he can start to paint his songs. Oops. Play, F, I, first, H, I, high, N, note. It starts really simply, like a simple tune, and I'll say, that sounds nice. Then he'll say, all right, raise that note an octave, add these notes, move that around, and he'll play it again, and wow, it's even more beautiful. And the more he tinkers with it, the more it begins to sound like maybe a classical guitar. Down, one, an octave. Oh, now, L. Sometimes I'll think, oh, don't change that, and every time he changes it, adds to it, it just becomes more brilliant. It's quite fun to work with him in that regard. I'm like the assistant to a master composer, and I'm not even aware of time. It's just nothing but fun to watch this guy work. everything except the 2 notes on 11. This, you're going to delete all of these really cool notes. S, O, so, we, can, S, T, start, F, from, S, A, C, R, A, scratch. Okay? Then his producer Dan takes over, and he and Jason together create something even more spectacular. Sarana is the reason I'm alive now. She has taught me so much. She has taught me what real love is. And even when we weren't a couple anymore, she stayed to take care of me and be my best friend. She makes me want to be a better person.
Hey, dude, I noticed you keep looking up at the guitar. Is that, are you finding your notes on the guitar neck that way?
Hello.
Water?
Hi, come on in.
Thank
Marilyn.
Pat, you want water?
Water, yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Thank you.
I'm Pat.
I'm
Jason's
Angela.
mom. Nice to meet you.
I'm Josh's mom.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
And this is Jason.
I've been waiting to see you for a long time.
Oh, great.
This is kind of really exciting right now.
See? Oh, cool.
It's really nice. It's really an honor kind of to meet you. And I'm really glad to see you and that you're doing well. Are you?
V-E, very. W-E, very well. T-H, thanks.
You're welcome. I just want to learn more, and I watched your video for about a whole week of you playing the guitar and trying to use your techniques for my techniques.
Now, 20 years later, after Jason's been diagnosed, I can look at the big picture a little more, and I can see how many people he's helped and how many people he's inspired and how deep his music and his heart goes with people. And maybe that's the reason, but I wouldn't vote for it.
It's, it's you.
G, oh, good. M-A, man. You are so good, man.
Thank you.
You are. I mean, God.
People think I'm a hero or some kind of guru. I don't feel pressured to live up to that. I'm just being myself. I don't claim to be perfect. I think I still get depressed or sad or angry. One of my coping mechanisms for my situation is to act shallow and make nasty jokes. I think people think I am deep. I try to hide that side of myself because it is boring to be deep. I want to be like the gross dad in the cartoon show Family Guy.
Interactive resources. Okay, she just left. I can give you her voicemail. Is that okay? The main thing my work does is keep insurance going. The future scares me. What about when Gary and I get old? What about if one of us can't do the physical things anymore? I mean, we all know that something's going to happen and we're going to have to deal with it, but we don't really have a plan, and that's scary, and I wish we were better at that. I just wish that there was more for people who are diagnosed and their families. I wish there was more that the medical world could give them. It's all up to you. It's all up to you.
What keeps me going is a tough question. I think more people would try to keep going if they had lots of help like I do. Even if I wanted to keep living and writing music, I couldn't if not for my parents, Sarana and Marilyn and so on. But it is weird for me. I often feel like I'm not sick. I just sit still. I have stuff to do in this life. I enjoy it. I'm not in pain. I still have so much passion, not just for music, but relationships and friends. I mean, life is full of love and fun. I don't think everyone needs to feel this way. And if my situation were different, I might want to give up too. I don't think I'm special. I think I am lucky. And my parents taught me the magic in life.
We've been talking about a show for Jason. A place he every year we put together something, everybody comes out and sees him. And a place where people could respect the guitar, a celebration about Jason. A place where people come see him. They could fly all over the world to come see Jason and meet him, you know, and be like, wow, he's real.
The star has arrived.
Jason.
What's up, handsome? How you doing, brother?
Let me give Jason a hug. The man I'd never met in the flesh.
He's a big deal. I mean, I'm from Chile, and I go to Chile, and I talk about Jason, and no one believes I know him.
You guys are members of a very exclusive club, ALS Guitar Pickers, man. You can't find those just anywhere.
I flew in yesterday from Chicago. I came such a long way because Jason is a hero to me. If you never give up, you can see people like Jason, an inspiration. Jason Becker, man, you know, it's wow.
You know, I look at the YouTubes and all the people talking, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really influencing people right now. And sometimes you get, well, if he would have lived, they always say that shit. Like, he ain't dead yet. The dude's probably gonna outlive everybody.
In the big picture, in the universe, this is a tiny story.
Hello.
Hi.
Howdy.
Glad you could make it. Me too. Oh, it's good to see you.
The only thing I can figure out is here we all are, and all we can do is just our very best and just love. You know, it just all boils down to love. And so that's there, in spite of the ALS, in spite of everything, that's there. And maybe it's even stronger for us and other people, and Jason.
Right here, right now. We're all here for probably the coolest person that I've ever met in my whole life, Jason Becker.
Man, that was a good old Dylan song.
Sure was.